Hi, Marsha. It's a pleasure to welcome you to CUTS Adda, President Biden becoming the 46th President of the United States. So please accept my congratulations. And which is that we read reports about a great divide in the US, a kind of fragmented society. Now, how true this is, I don't know. But, and I wanted your wise counsel in being able to understand how deep this divide is. People are talking about systemic racism. People are talking about 75 million votes that President Trump got. And of course, the events of January 6th, which have shaken not only Americans, but all lovers of democracy the world over. How deep or how true do you think the American society is facing a divide?
Right. It's an excellent question, and I'm quite aware that it's a question in the minds of many friends of the U.S. and partners of the U.S. and allies of the U.S. and then individual people on a people-to-people basis. I think the lens to look at it through, though, is short-term and long-term. Short-term is arguably less problematical than the longer term. The short term is epitomized in what happened January 6th and the insurrection in the Capitol, at the Capitol in Washington. That aftermath is now playing out. There is the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump going on in the US Senate. I really don't know what the outcome of that will be. I guess I'm doubtful that the senators will impeach the former president. But it has to be an embarrassing note. Important is that it doesn't play against the Democrats as grandstanding in any way for political gain, that it be really a look at the facts as to what happened, who the people were, and what the responsibilities were of the former president. So in that shorter term context, I think there's an opportunity for this administration to bridge the divides that are suggested by what happened on January 6th. A lot of it depends on the profile that the Trump supporters are able to maintain between now and the midterm elections, so 2 years. A lot of it depends on the profile and how loud they are. Politically, in the meantime, you have a Republican Party that's very divided between the traditional Republicans and Republicans who are supporting Donald Trump, but who are supporting his Trump ideology. And it's very problematical for the party, with some people suggesting that there is barely a party there, if a party at all. Anyway, I think those things are going to play out. Biden has a playing field that he's laying out for himself, both domestically and foreign policy-wise, to get between now and the end of his 4-year term, but he has to make considerable gains before those midterms. Otherwise, those voices that we saw represented on January 6th will come back in a serious way. The longer term focus, I think, is a structural issue for America. And this is where the real concern for me is, and for others. And that is a structural change in terms of the population of the United States, which is projected by 2050 to no longer be a majority of white people, but to be a majority of minorities, which is problematical for people who have felt marginalized by educational opportunities, by job opportunities, by lifestyle opportunities. Technology, after all, has left a lot of people behind, and there's been very little effort, or insufficient effort, let me say, to try to find retraining, retooling, re-educating society to meet what the changes technologically and otherwise have meant. And now you overlay that with the pandemic, it really has made things very serious. But I think this polarization goes very deep, and there's a segment of Americans who feel that marginalization very strongly, and it'll be very hard to reach them and bring them bring them across. Now, can politics do it? Is there enough opportunity for politics to move forward and heal the country? You have to say Biden's out there with a fighting chance. The fact that he's on the road to getting this huge stimulus that by all other counts would have people rearing back and saying the deficit is going to be too large for America to handle. The payback is going to be too great. But that he needs that stimulus as the first step in a two-step process to try to get the economy back moving. It's not going to be a slam dunk with the economy, as everyone knows. The decimation has been unreal. In a town and city like San Francisco, you walk downtown and see the number of once vibrant stores boarded up still because there's just concern and then there's no business and the economy is yet to come back. It'll come back slowly, piece by piece, but he's got a fighting chance is what I'm trying to say. And that fighting chance with the domestic economy and the domestic, getting the domestic house in order, is what is going to support his foreign policy interests.
How concerned is President Biden and the American people with China?
Oh, deeply concerned and deeply concerned. And the question is, how do you approach China given a very bipartisan, short of consensus, disaffection with China? There's been a number of bills in Congress that have tried to take China to task for many reasons. I mean, the history is quite complicated. And I think this, he's faced with threading the needle between finding areas of cooperation and then clear competition and then clear articulation of where what China is doing is not in either prompts the U.S. to speak out. For instance, in human rights, the case with the Uyghurs, the case with what happened in Hong Kong. Had there been a President Biden in the White House, I think we would have had a very different response from America. But I think China will be front and center, and it has to be front and center, given the importance of the country, the growth of the country, the strategic ambitions of the country under Xi Jinping's leadership, where that is taking the country and where that, how that's going to articulate the world order going forward. I mean, if you just consider the trade issues, I mean, this is a very problematical area for the U.S. The U.S. dropped out of TPP, and you now have 11 nation equivalent of TPP in place, which doesn't include the U.S. You have the RCEP trade treaty, the largest trade treaty in the world, which is the countries in Asia again. The U.S. is not part of that. These are two big treaties that are going to be setting the rules and the standards and the conditions for exchange of goods and services in the fastest growing region of the world. That's problematical for the U.S. And China is front and center in that whole effort. The question, I think, for me is how much that role with China will crowd out the real interests of the valuable interests with countries like India. For instance, Biden's emphasis on climate change policy. There's a real opportunity for a first mover action, diplomatic action with India to come to some kind of agreement as to what they can do jointly to move that Paris Accord in its 5th anniversary forward as we move toward COP26 at Glasgow in November. But to answer your question again, to underline, I think China plays a very important role, front and center, as will Japan, as will Japan, as will India, as will the other countries throughout the region, but particularly China will set the pace.
Thank you so much, Marsha.